So good day everyone. So we will discuss about our activity that I have left you with last meeting. So I think I have left you 4 activities. So I have here at my side my copy of the activity. So the first activity talks about the normal balance of the account titles. So to make things easier, I want you to recall the accounting equation. So I have given you the basic accounting equation and the expanded accounting equation. So the basic accounting equation is, for the basic, that is, if you could recall, that is assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. So for the expanded accounting equation, so I have given you the expanded accounting equation where all the accounts that all the categories that I have given you are in positive balances. So that is assets plus expense equals liabilities plus equity and plus revenue. So if you have seen a different formula in the book, that is asset equals liabilities plus equity plus revenue minus expense. So this is the formula that you have seen in your book. So actually, this part is for your balance sheet and this part is for your income statement. So why did I make this formula? Because it's easier for you to have to know the normal balances if all accounts are in its positive values. So I transpose, if you could recall your basic math, if you could just transpose the negative sign, so transfer your expense to the other side, and once it would pass an equal sign, it becomes positive. So this is the formula that we will follow. So what is the purpose of this one? So long as you know the categories of the account titles, you would know that in this side is the debit balance and this side is the credit balance. While for this one, this is for the debit side and this is for the credit side. So if you know that that is an asset, so the normal balance is a debit. If it's an expense, normal balance is also a debit. And if it's a liability, equity, and revenue or income, that is credit. But try to recall that there are also contra accounts or offset accounts. Like for example, in the asset, what is the contra accounts there? So we have estimated uncollectible accounts. So estimated uncollectible accounts is a contra account of your accounts receivable, meaning that will be deducted from your accounts receivable. Hence, the normal balance is credit. What else are your contra account? How about accumulated depreciation? That is a deduction from your non-current asset. Like for example, equipment. What else? Mga building. So, mga fixed assets except land. So, asset has a normal balance of debit, but since that is a contra account, so the normal balance is the opposite of its related account. So, opposite is credit. What else? Drawing. Diba drawing belongs to equity? So, what is it? It's here. But since that is a reduction of your capital, so normal balance of capital, its related account is an equity, so normal balance is credit. But since drawing is a contra or an offset account or a deduction from your capital account, so the normal balance is opposite to its related account. So the related account is capital, which is credit, so opposite of that is debit. So let's try to solve your first activity. So the first one is interest income. So what is an interest income? Try to recall the chart of accounts or the list of account titles that I have given you. So interest income is an income. So normal balance, or what is it? It's a revenue. So normal balance is credit. Very good. So number 1 would be credit. Number 2 is notes payable. So what is a notes payable? So is it an asset, an expense, a liability, equity, or revenue? So notes payable is a liability. Very good. So since it is a liability, the normal balance is credit. So that is debit and credit. Always remember that you could not interchange both. So debit is always on this side, on your left, and credit is always on your right side. So notes payable is, again, a liability, it's credit. Next, subscription income. So subscription income is a form of a revenue or an income. Since that is a revenue, it is on your right side. So the normal balance is credit. Next is Ofelia Coronado Capital. So it's a capital, so it's under equity. So normal balance is credit. Next is accounts receivable. So accounts receivable is a what? It's a current asset. So it's an asset. So where does asset belong? It's on the left side. So on the left side, that is your debit. Next is accounts payable. So accounts payable is it an asset, expense, liability, equity, or revenue? That is a liability. So since it's a liability, normal balance is credit. Next is Ofelia Coronado drawing. So it's a drawing, ma'am, that is an equity. Yes, it's an equity. But take note that drawing is a reduction from your capital. So although it is an equity account, its related account is the capital, credit balance, but being an offset account, the normal balance is debit. Reduction, offset. Next is unused supplies. What is an unused supplies? So this is the supplies left in the business that can be used for the next year. So what is that? It's an asset. So asset are your resources for the business. So since it is an asset, normal balance is debit. Next, prepaid expense. So what is a prepaid expense? Just like your load. Oh, what is your load? Unless if nakaplan ka. Because if wala ka nagpa-plan, so what you would do, you will go to the sari-sari store. Ate, naa ba kay mo load ba ka? Oh, so what you would do, pa-load ka, you will pay first before using, that is prepaid expense. Unlike sa postpaid, you will use first, then you will pay. But if you will pay first before using, that is prepaid. So, since that is not yet used, that is to be used in the future, days after, that is an asset. It's a resource of the business. So, since it is an asset, that is a debit. Next is professional income. Clear na kayo sa name. It's an income. What is an income? It's on the right side. So, that is credit. What is the purpose of this one? Knowing the normal balances. So, it's easier for you to journalize if you know the normal balance. If you could recall what I have discussed last meeting, so if you know the normal balance, if your goal in the transaction is to increase or to record an amount, what you would do is follow the normal balance. If you will purchase land, what will happen? You will have a record of the land, meaning ma-increase or naana kay record. So what you will do? Increase your asset. So how will you increase the asset? What is the normal balance? Debit. What if I will sell the asset, ma'am? What will happen to your asset? Makwaan. You will dispose of it. You will lose it. So what will happen? It will decrease the asset. So how to decrease an asset? You'll just go to the other side. Tabok kas pikas. Why? That is the opposite balance. So if you want to increase or have a record, a positive value of your account, follow the normal balance. But take note, there are offset accounts or contra accounts. So it will follow to the opposite balance of the related account. But if your purpose is to dispose, to decrease, or to zero out a balance, go to the other side. Do not follow the normal balance. So if the normal is debit, go to the other side, credit it. If the normal balance is credit, you want to decrease it or to zero out the balance, go to the other side, debit it. So that's the purpose of your normal balances. Next activity, it's still normal balances. Notes receivable. What's notes receivable? You rendered service, it was done on account, wala ka bayari, but a document was issued. Mo promise, your customer promised to pay you with a promissory note. So, what is that to you? It's your notes receivable. So, if notes receivable, what is that? It's an asset. So, since that is an asset, normal balance is debit. Next is taxes and licenses. So, taxes and licenses, what is that? Paying permits to the government. Mga taxes, mga lisensya. Every time that you will have a business, there are a lot of taxes that you will pay. So what is that? That is an expense, the benefit you will receive from having a business. So having a business is not a right, it's a privilege. So if that is an expense, what is the normal balance? Debit. Cash in bank. So what is a cash in bank? Your cash that you deposited in the bank. So what is that? It's an asset. So what is the normal balance? Debit. Accounts payable. That's already repeated in the first activity. So accounts payable is a liability, specifically current liability. So the normal balance is credit. Next is another capital, Acctg1 capital. So, since that is a capital, that is under equity, normal balance is credit. Next, insurance expense. From the name itself, it's an expense. You paid your insurance, life insurance, health insurance, whatever insurance you have. So, expense, is this the expense? No, this is the equity. Expense is here. So, expense is on the left side, that is debit. Interest income. From the name itself, income, where is that? Revenue. Normal balance is credit. What else? Unused supplies. This has been repeated already in the previous activity. So, unused supplies is the supplies left that can be used for the next year or for the next months. So, that is an asset. Normal balance is debit. Next is the drawing. Acctg1 drawing. So, again, ma'am, that is under equity, but that is a reduction from your capital. So, what would happen is, normal balance of capital is credit, but since that is a reduction from your capital, it will follow the opposite balance of the related account. So, that is debit. Prepaid insurance. You paid the insurance first before using the insurance. That is the common one. So, what is that? Prepaid. Asset. Bayad ka una for future use. So, that is a resource that you could use in the future. So, since that is an asset, debit. Unearned service income. So, what is an unearned service income? That is a common confusion of the students. So, let's try to read the definition. Unearned service income is an account title for an income collected or received in advance and is not yet considered as earned. So that is pre-collected income. So what would happen is that, we are the hotel. Here comes a customer, mubuk mi hotel. We want to avail for a hotel for 5 days. So what will we do? So that we will have nothing in the eyes of the customer or the guest, we don't like to think of any payments after we would check out. So we'll pay in advance. So in our business, what is that? It's a pre-collected income. It's not yet our income. Why? If you could recall the accrual basis, we record it as income when we have already rendered services. So for example, we book the hotel today but we will use it next month, October pa. So we have not yet rendered services. So in our point of view, yes, we have received cash, but it is our liability, it is our obligation to render services to that guest. So what happened? Utangan ta. So kita ang utangan. Why? We are yet to render our services pero gibayran na ta. So pre-collected or unearned. It's not yet earned but we have already collected it. So that is a liability. Normal balance is credit. Next, notes payable. From the name itself, payable. That is our obligation. So if that is an obligation, it's a liability. Payable. So normal balance is credit. Prepaid rent o another prepaid. Gibayran na to una, we have not yet stayed on that place. So kita man ang nibayad og una. So dili kita ang utangan. It's where we want to rent ang utangan. So in our point of view, nibayad na gud ta. So naa pa sila utang nato, napatay tinglonon. We could still avail of their services. So that is an asset. It's a debit. Next is interest expense. So, from the name itself, expense. Normal balance is debit. Professional income, I think we have already discussed this in the previous activity. So, from the name itself, it's a revenue, credit. Utilities expense. So, your electricity, your water bills. So, it's an expense, debit. Supplies used. The amount of supplies that you have used for the year, for the accounting period. You have used it already. So, the benefits received. So, that is an expense. So, since that is an expense, normal balance is debit. Office equipment. It's a resource. The one that you will use in the office. So, since that is a resource, it's an asset, normal balance is debit. Salaries and wages, the most awaited sa isa ka employee. So, salaries and wages, that is an expense of the company. Normal balance is debit. Rent expense, from the name itself, it's an expense. So, every time that you will stay in a place and you will pay rent, so mga boarding houses, mga dorms, apartment, so that is expense, debit. Land. So take note of land. It is a non-current asset, but it's the only non-current asset that will not depreciate. So there is no accumulated depreciation. Land will not lower down its value as the years go by. Opposite na sa mana, common joke of people. Women daw, as the years pass by, magkabarato. Ano man, magkalosyang. So, we'll try our best daw to be of higher value. Joke lang. Anyway, interest receivable, a receivable account. So, since it is a receivable, kitay na idawatunon, it's our resource, that is an asset, normal balance is debit. Okay, next activity. I cannot see. It's too small. I don't have Zoom. Can I zoom this? No, I cannot. So just bear with me. Okay. So on the space provided, indicate a check mark as to the effect on the balances of the following accounts. So what would happen? So let me pull this table. I cannot see. Let's use this board. So we have here notes receivable account was debited. So what is a notes receivable? So let me stay at the center. I'll just move it here. Okay. So what is a notes receivable? Receivable, it's an asset. So it is being debited. So I'll write it again ha. Assets plus expense equals liability plus equity plus revenue. So what is a receivable? Asset. So you must know whether it is a debit or credit. So if the receivable account was debited, gidebit daw. And you already know that notes receivable is an asset, and you debited it, what would happen? It will increase. Musaka siya because you followed the normal balance. How about accounts payable account was debited? Accounts payable, what is accounts payable? Payable, liability. It was debited, so meaning it was here. It's the opposite of the normal balance because the normal balance is credit. But you debited it. Anong gidebit na to ang accounts payable? Probably we paid our accounts payable. So, we need to zero out or to lessen the balance. So, what will happen? It will decrease the accounts payable. It will lower down. It's the opposite balance. Next, capital. Miriam Narbartek capital account was credited. What is a capital? It's an equity. Then, ato ang gi-credit. What will happen? It follows the normal balance. So, you are increasing your capital. Rent expense account was debited. Rent expense is an expense account. Ato ang gi-debit. So, we follow the normal balance. So, it is an increase of your expense. So, what number are we? Number 5. Petty cash fund account was debited. What is petty cash fund? That is an asset. We debited your petty cash. What happened? The effect is increase. Nisaka. Next, accounts receivable account was debited. Another asset. Gidebit. What will happen? Increase. Musaka. Drawing account was debited. Drawing. Ma'am, that is a drawing. Equity. Normal balance is credit if it's drawing. No. Why? Drawing is a contra or an offset account or a reduction account of your capital. Capital. So, capital, normal balance is credit. But drawing is a deduction. So, mo subtract na siya sa capital. So, if that is a reduction, normal balance of its related account, iyang related account, iyang partner nga account is capital. So, asa siya i-minus. So, ang normal balance of the related is credit. So, the contra account will follow the opposite balance of the related account. So, what is the opposite of its related account? Related account is capital. Normal is credit. So, what is the opposite? Debit. What did the problem say? What did you do with the drawing? You debited it. So, imuhang i-debit, what would happen? It increased your drawing account. What number are we? Okay, 8. Accounts payable account was credited. Accounts payable. What is that? Liability. And if that is credited, what would happen? There is an increase. Nisaka ang imuhang payable. Next, prepaid insurance. What is prepaid insurance? Asset. What happened to the prepaid? Credited. Credit daw. Oh, what happened? It's an opposite. The ara, prepaid insurance is here. But you credited it. Opposite sa iyang normal. What is the normal? Debit. So, since it's the opposite, what happened? It decreased. Opposite siya. If you will not follow the normal balances, what happened is it decreased the balance. Insurance expense. Insurance expense was debited. What is insurance expense? Expense. Gidebit daw na to. What happened? Nisaka, increase. Next, notes payable was debited. This is the notes payable. It's a liability. But, we debited it. Opposite. Tabok ka sa center. So, if it's the opposite, the effect is decrease. And lastly, accounts receivable. Receivable daw. It's an asset. But it was credited. Credit. So, what happened? Opposite. So, it's a decrease. Diba? It's just easy so long as you know the category and you know the accounting equation, both basic and expanded. You will never go wrong in making the journal entries so long as you also know which account title to use. That's why I gave you a copy of which account titles to study. It's just, the meanings are just self-explanatory. So master that. I did not tell you to memorize verbatim. I just want you to understand what is the meaning of the account title. Know the category, whether that is an asset, liability, equity, income, or expense. At the same time, you must know whether that is it belongs to statement of financial position or the balance sheet, or whether it belongs to the income statement or the statement of comprehensive income. So how would you know whether that is the balance sheet? So here, the ones found in your basic accounting equation, asset, liability, and equity, or otherwise known as the accounting values, it's for your balance sheet. While income statement, it's your revenue and your expense. So, kani. This is your income statement accounts. For the last activity, so debit credit ta. So we have here, we are told to make the entries. So you just ask whether that is a debit, what is the debit, and what is the credit. At the same time, we must classify the account title. So what is the debit? Was it an asset or was it a liability, equity, income, or expense? So the first one was already made as an example. So let's just do a short discussion about it. So made cash investment to the business. So as I have discussed in the previous video, so every time that you will make an investment, so that is a capital of the business. But when you would ask or when you would try to analyze whether what is your debit, so try to think what did the business receive. So it's the point of view of the business, not of the owner. So if there is a cash investment, in the point of view of the business has received cash. So what is cash? It is an asset. So in the point of view of the business, what is the credit? It's the capital of the owner. So you could write the family name, then capital, or the initial of the first name, period, then family name, comma, capital. So what is that? That is an equity account. Next is for the September 3 rendered service on account. What did we receive? Giutang daw. What happened in this transaction? Ni-render tag servicio, we render the service, but we were not paid. It was done on account. So, you already know it's a credit transaction. The question is, whose credit? Is it the business or the customer? Whose credit is that? It's not ours. Why? We're the ones rendering service. So if we're the ones rendering the service, what would happen? Kita ang wala bayre. We are the ones not paid. So what did we receive? It was done on account. There was no indication whether there is a document or none. So meaning, it's an oral promise to pay. Now, if the problem is silent, there is no indication of any document being given or being issued. So assume that as oral promise to pay or orally done, verbally done. So, what is that? That is accounts payable or receivable. Take note. Kita ang giutangan. So, what is that? It's accounts receivable. So, what is accounts receivable? What category? It's an asset. So, that is our debit. What is our credit? What did we forgo? Our services. In what form? It's our service income. So, if it's a service income, what is that? Revenue. Next. Borrowed money from a bank with a note issued. We borrowed something from the bank. So, it's us who borrowed. So, it's not a receivable, kay kita ang nanghulam, it's our payable. What did we receive from the bank? Cash. So what is cash? That is an asset. So if that cash is being deposited in our account, so that is cash in bank. But if it's not, you could use cash or cash on hand. It depends on the chart of accounts being used by the problem or by the business. So, since we are the ones borrowing, we have a payable, but it indicated that there was a note issued. So that could be notes payable. But if there is another account title being used by the problem, so it could be loan payable, bank loan payable. Why? Because we borrowed money from the bank, meaning we have a loan. So what is that? It's a liability. Received cash for service rendered. This is the opposite of the second transaction. So, we rendered services but we were paid. So, what did we receive? We received cash. So, what is cash? It's an asset. What should be your credit? What did you forgo? So, we forgo our services. In what form? Service income. So, what is that? It's an income. It's a revenue. Next would be withdrew cash from the business. What is our debit? Withdrawal. So, withdrawal. So, simply write our family name, comma, drawing. Now, why is that debit? If you could recall, drawing is a reduction of the capital. Since that is a reduction, it is an offset account. Normal balance is debit. So, what did we forgo? Cash. Why? Gibawi sa owner. He took back his money for his personal use. So, we forgo cash. So, cash is an asset. Paid business permits. So, what is that? That is taxes and licenses. So, taxes and licenses would be an expense. What is our credit? Ma'am, why did we receive taxes and licenses? It's an expense. Because we received the benefit, the privilege of having a business. That's what we receive. Not anyone can have a business. So we paid the licenses, we paid the permits for us to be able to have the business. So, debit expense. But what did you forgo? It's not the expense, but it's cash. So, cash is credit. Credit, at the same time, it's an asset. Received a promissory note for a service rendered. We received a promissory note, meaning what happened in this transaction? We rendered services, we were not paid, but we were only given a promissory note. So, what is your debit? Take note, kita ang giutangan. It's a receivable. What kind of receivable? Notes receivable. What is a notes receivable? It's an asset. What did we forgo? Our services. In what form? service income. So what is service income? Revenue or income. Made additional investment in the form of computer. So what did the business receive? So you could use that as office equipment. So office equipment, what is that? Okay, computer man. So office equipment, that is an asset. So made additional investment. It did not say that purchased a computer for the business. Wala. If that is purchased a computer, meaning we paid cash. But since what is stated in the problem is made additional investment, so meaning it was purchased by the owner, it was given as part of his capital, so that is a capital, owner's equity. So your family name, comma, capital. Collected a customer's account. So we rendered services, but we were not paid, so we had accounts receivable. But by this time, we collected his receivable. So if we collected his account, meaning what did we receive? Cash. What is cash? Asset. What did we forgo? So we need to lessen his balance, or we need to close his balance. So what is that? Accounts receivable. So accounts receivable is our credit. We forgo, we deducted his balance, and accounts receivable is an asset. Paid postage and stamps. So you could use postage and stamps. What is that? Although kinaraan na, maybe some would still use that. Like government transactions, we have documentary stamps. So pwede. So, or ka nang magpadala ka sa mailing. So, that is postage and stamps. That is an expense. Credit? What is that? It's an expense. Alam nga, utangon ni mong expense. So, credit, cash. If the problem is silent, it did not indicate any credit transaction. So, what you would do is, it's a cash transaction. So, credit, cash, that is an asset. Next, paid light and water bills. You were told to use utilities expense. So, that is an expense. So, that should be the debit. Credit, how did you pay it? In the form of cash. Cash is an asset. Paid the promissory note issued, meaning kita ang nibayad. Take note, when we purchase something on account, nag-debit kag, for example, it was a what did we purchase here? It was not stated. For example, we purchased a microwave and it was giutang through a promissory note. So, we debited an appliance. Sir, how would you name it? Pwede kung office equipment pa na siya. So, credit, notes payable. Kita may nangutang with a promissory note. But if we will pay our promissory note, we will get back our promissory note. Nganong get back man? If kita ang mangutang, kita ang mo issue. That's why bitaw nga, credit, notes payable. But if we will pay it, we be sure nga, we will take back the promissory note. If dili na nato mabawi, what would happen? It means we still have a balance with them. So, take back the promissory note, so debit, notes payable, for you to be able to zero or lessen your balance. Credit, gibayran man nimo. You paid it. Credit, cash. So, notes payable is a liability, while cash is an asset. Next. Paid salaries to employees. So, the benefits you have received from the services rendered by your employees, that is an expense. So, salaries and wages or salaries and expense. So, the category is an expense. Credit, you paid them. So, cash, it is an asset. So, that is all for the activity that we have solved last meeting. So, if you have further questions, again, you could just post your comment in our Google Classroom. You could ask me. Then, I will explain it to you or I could just reply in your query. So hopefully you have understand the activities, and until the next problem solving, we will still have a video for it to be easier for you to understand. But if you chose not to listen to the video or not to watch the video, it's okay. I will still give you slides for the theory part, but problem solving, it's easier for me to show a video so that you could understand further. So if I will tell you in our Google Classroom that just see the link or just see the YouTube, so just click or just open my YouTube channel and see for the videos, for the solutions and all. So thank you, and see you for the next video, or see you for our next class. So please be posted with, or please be updated with whatever post I would have in our Google Classroom. So most likely in every meeting that we have, I would post our topic. But for instructions, I would post it during our time, but there are some emergency posts in which I would inform or mga reminders. So just see it from time to time. And don't worry, it's just available in our Google Classroom, and videos and audios of our slides are also present in my YouTube channel. So see you and bye!